the last 8 400s is probably the equivalent to what you can run your 3200 at. So, if you're Courtney Smith and you do 4 at 85 and the last 8 at 80, you can run a 1040. Now, she was doing the last 8 at 78, which is why she did 1012.
Welcome to a Run on Culture podcast, featuring local runners and coaches helping us define a culture of success. We welcome Mark Lacianca to the podcast today. Mark is the head cross-country and track and field coach at Unionville High School, where he has guided his girls' team to 2 NXN appearances. His program was featured in a 2014 Runner's World article, Cross Training to the Top, which highlights Mark's use of cross-training in his program. Mark has been the lead advocate for change in the Chessmont League meet scheduling, looking to move towards a Supermeet model, which would provide better opportunities for training and racing. Mark, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's start out. Maybe you can just fill in a few of the blanks for us and tell us who you are, maybe your history and how you got into running.
So I ran in high school. Actually, I moved upstate in 1981, and this is how backwards the world was. There was no Spanish and no soccer. So I had to end my soccer career, which didn't have that much hope to begin with, and I had to end my Spanish career. And there were 2 fall sports. There was cross country and there was football. And the cross country team needed freshmen. And so I went out. I think the second or third day of school was my first day. And the pre-meet was a 5-mile run. And I thought that was a lot of running. And the next day we had a meet and I finished last. And then I asked my coach, how did we do? Did we win? I didn't anything to do with it. And not only did we win, we had at the time the longest winning streak in the country. And my coach actually just died of coronavirus last month. But he had a run of, I think, 14 or 15 years in a row of winning the district. So I walked into this program, and we were a high mileage program. I ran 6,000 miles in high school. And, that was where I got the bug. And then I was an engineer, and I didn't think I was going to be the greatest engineer ever, and wanted to interact with people and became a teacher. And in 1997, the track job opened up, and that turned into the cross country job. And then I just I'm kind of a doer, and I just got totally involved and started an indoor program, and we've been at it full time now for over 20 years.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about this Supermeet model that you have developed. It is something that I feel a lot of coaches agree with, and our sport has kind of taken, its traditional model maybe from other sports where we have a meet every week or every other week. When I was in high school, sometimes we'd have 2 dual meets in 1 week. Not necessarily the best physiological thing for our runners and our athletes. Maybe if you could describe what the Supermeet model is, and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
Right. So the Supermeet model came about at the start of last decade. It actually took us 8 years and it's a lot of politicking to get people to change their mind and get the ADs on board. And every time we thought we had it done, somebody would then, people are afraid of change. So the idea was, instead of us having our athletes compete 2 or 3 times a week at the dual meets and the invitationals, and these dual meets on our side were not properly funded. We would go to a dual meet with 4 workers, and it would take over 3 hours to have it. It really would be a tri meet to try and cut down on some of the travel. We had gone to a tri meet. So we just had all these meets that were really long and they weren't productive. I mean, you're having your best athlete run 3 or 4 times, and often there's no competition, but they're just checking the box to help you to win the meet. And I do think it's important to try and win the division or the league in our sports, because we have some athletes that, this is the pinnacle of their athletic experience. So we came up with a model where, instead of running 4 or 5 times during the season, and that all counted towards the league championship, we said, what if we take our 18 events and divide them up over 2 different meets? And in those 2 different meets, an athlete can only compete 4 times. So You could do 3 one day, 1 another, 2 and 2. You could do 4 and 0 if you wanted. So we had we have approximately 9 events one day and 9 events the other day. What we did with the other weeks was we had open meets for our athletes that were not on the varsity, or if you want to run your varsity kid in an off event, you could do that also. So if we focus on just the super meet, we now had 6 athletes per event. Every event was loaded. Every event, an athlete can qualify for districts, which didn't happen before. And I never understood how our field athletes couldn't qualify for districts, but our track athletes could. So, we had 18 great events with a lot of competition. And last year we did it for the first time. The meets were over in 2 hours and 45 minutes, and could have been over faster, but we stayed the time schedule to really try to, promote great running, great competition. But we came down to, on the boys' side, the last event, and 5 teams could have won the meet on the 4x4. And Ruston lost the league. I think they went from being 5-0 to 2-3 because they dropped the baton in the 4x1 when we went back and looked at it. So it was a lot of fun. We had a former college coach there that thought the thing was the greatest thing he ever saw. And it was, I thought, better for all of our athletes, not just our varsity athletes who now were really fresh. And I'm only going to the well 5 or 6 times all year with them before we got to states, but for our JV athletes too, because now you get to go to the meet and focus on the JV athlete, where before you're at the meet, at the tri meet or dual meet, and you're just worried about trying to see if you're going to win each individual event.
Yeah. And, usually if you're the one running the meet and you're at a tri meet, you're too busy running around like crazy anyway. So more teams, more help, more opportunity to actually do the coaching.
Right. So we have six teams on our side, and each team hosted one event. So there were years where I hosted 3 tri meets in a year because our school would do it right, and our AD would help out and pick up some other meets. So it was actually cost friendly, and it was better for the sport.
So what do you say to the traditional coach or the old school coach that is stuck in this mentality of, my kids need to race into shape, we need to go hard X amount of times a week?
It's hard. I think change is hard. I think getting people to break their old habits or what they think is actually true is a really hard thing to do. And again, it took us 8 or 9 years to get there. And we still have a couple coaches that grudgingly will accept it now. Oh, I can see what's better about it. But, they still miss that excitement of the dual meet. And so there's no easy answer there other than you just have to keep plugging away. And I think what you're seeing, from when I ran, very few coaches would listen to Jack Daniels, not that he's the only one, but now a lot of coaches understand, the science is right. So it just takes time for that change to happen. So we took 2 approaches. One was we talked to the coaches about what's best for the sport and their athletes. And we also looked at it from the cost side, which we were lucky that it was more cost friendly, to run it this way. You're only running one meet a year for each school.
Is there science, physiological benefits to not over racing or not doing as many dual meets?
Oh, sure. Yeah. You just can't, you can only go hard so many times. So, you look at these college athletes and they're running once a week, if that. A lot of them are only racing 2 or 3 times a month, and our best athletes aren't even racing in cross country till October. So here we are, just going all out all the time. So we've always tried at Unionville to pick and choose our battles. Even in the old dual meet system, a lot of our dual meets were really, glorified workouts. And we just focus on 5 or 6 events where we're going to go all out.
You also have a very unique approach to the indoor season. You come off of cross country, you're typically going to the regional meet, you've been to NXN, and then you have your athletes almost race immediately right after that some years.
We've done both. We've done right after the, you're in great shape, just get the time, and then we will not see the track again until February. And then just, we use indoor states as a really big meet, but certainly not a meet we're peaking for, right?
And that worked out great for Cole Walker this season, it seemed.
It's worked out. We had the number 1 4x8 girls time in the nation for like 3 weeks one year. It was pretty neat. We had 4 distance girls, and we just went out and ran 9:27 on total strength after after NXN. And then I think we had a couple of really great 3K times that day also. So we looked phenomenal. And then obviously the rest of the nation catches up. But for us, it was more about, getting indoor states to me is a big deal, but I don't want to do it the wrong way and have, our athletes burn out by trying to race all winter to get that time.
Do you really see it as you can peak twice a year? That concept.
Yes. We run two like 23-week cycles approximately is our goal. So right, and it's a progression where we're looking to peak in May, and we're looking to peak in October, November, depending on how good your athletes are. Right, but we run two 23-week cycles.
How's that going to change now with the shutdown and COVID and?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't know what's going to happen with the fall. So what we've done is, and we've had our athletes, and I'm sure you have, at all kinds of different places. I had a couple of my top athletes just go in the tank in one direction or the other. They're mentally like disappointed. Some others have just gone out and run all kinds of miles and they're on pavement and they're getting injured. So we kind of just had a big town hall meeting after it was official that it was over, and we said, look, why don't we look at either doing a couple like glorified races on your own or just shutting down and starting over for cross country. And we set up a plan where really we have our athletes just kind of running some slow structured runs in May. And then in June, we'll go a little bit maybe harder than we used to, but not much, just because we have another month of base running. So we're just kind of extending the window. But I don't know if we're going to be racing or not this fall as a team, but I would hope that we are in shape, that our athletes can go out and run a really good mile time on their own, say, in October or November if there's no season.
If there's not a season, do you think there'll be maybe pop-up opportunities for students that still want to race?
I don't know. I mean, that's beyond me. There could be. It depends on, I guess, what happens. Are we allowed to have groups of 10? Are people willing to host races? What does our school say? So I can say to these athletes, sure, you're going to go race on your own. Can I be a part of that? And I'm certainly not going to jeopardize my job. And I think, again, we go back to self-accountability, that we can put our athletes in a position where they can go out and get some quality runs in. And maybe they don't PR in the mile, but they get close to their PR without training, with the team. That would be really impressive. So we've tried to really promote fitness for life, self-accountability, in the last couple of weeks. We're trying to build a base, real slow base in May and then build up in June.
And how about those athletes that are looking to run at the next level collegiately? Maybe juniors that were hoping to throw down some great marks this spring, going into their senior year now. What's your message to them?
Yeah, we have. I mean, Josie Chiquino comes to mind because she was ready to have a really good spring season. I think last year she missed the district 800 time by 0.04 seconds. And you've been there with athletes. And I really felt like if she got the time, she would have found her way into a district final and probably not got it done. But, I mean, it would have been just a great learning experience. So I was really confident this year she was going to be able to run that district qualifying time easy and be in the state, mix for the 800. Our girls 4x8 looked like it had some potential. So, yeah, it's a real big blow for her. And what I've told her, she's talked to a couple schools, is, I'm lucky that I have a reputation as a coach and she can use my name, and I'm happy to talk to the coach because the coaches right now have a lot of time too. And that's probably the best we can do, but you try to keep them motivated. And I'm worried about my athletes that are seniors that are going to college. I'm not sure they're going to be running next year, at least in the fall. I mean, I can't see colleges competing if they can't have people in the stands.
That stuff will probably be kind of rolling out over the next weeks, month, and we'll get some more answers and then maybe be able to plan accordingly and move that way. Well, so without being able to go face to face, what's your plan for training over the summer and getting kids to training, communicating with kids to make sure they're not getting injured? Are you using an online platform?
We are. Yeah, we are. So I have, we've had Strava before with the athletes. I've never actually been on it. And so I changed my tune. I'm an old dog still trying to learn some new tricks. And we have a Strava running club. And what we did was we put an Excel spreadsheet together, and I have three structured work, and they're really glorified distance runs, but three structured workouts per week that we're going to repeat, for the first 3 weeks, and then we'll change it a little bit in June. And their run should be recorded on their, if they can afford it, because right now we have some families in some tough times, on either their Garmin watch or they could put their phone in an armband and hold them accountable. And I find, and I'm sure you've had it too, you have athletes that say, "Oh, I'm running all summer," and then they come out the first day and they're just not ready, and they tell you, "Well, I was running 20 minutes like 3 times a week," and you gave them a plan where they're supposed to build up to 60-minute long runs and 4x60 or whatever it is, and they're not doing it. So I'm hoping between them putting the workouts on the Excel spreadsheet, each athlete has an individual tab, and then we're going to have our leaders check it and ask them questions. And I think the athletes will get on each other with Strava. Well, you said you ran this time, and Strava says you ran that time. But that's our plan, to try and help them. And again, it's all about fitness for life and getting them to be accountable.
Yeah, and that leadership element is going to be really important. Those leaders on your team stepping up to hold people accountable and to create a sense of community when there isn't that physical contact. Let's dive into the training just a little bit, because our programs are similar in some ways, but very different in others from a training model. Early in my career, I probably asked you 1,000 questions, got a lot of great workouts from you. I still use some of your 800-meter progressions that you shared with me. And even the cross training, I've taken some of those elements, but you do have a very unique approach when it comes to training, cross training, and how you mentioned earlier, your structured easy runs. Let's go there first. Let's talk about these structured easy runs and what they look like.
Right. So when my running career ended, I used to have our athletes go out, and we'd send out the slowest group and then the next group. And, I was never a great runner, but I could literally go out last, and then I could, catch everybody. And they thought I was a superstar. So it was great for my self-esteem. So when my knee went, overnight, it just went. And I had to figure out a way to hold people accountable, because I'm one of those people that I struggle when somebody's taking a shortcut, and I don't think it's fair. So, we created, at the time, it was 3,200-meter loops on our course. And I've since, I didn't reinvent the wheel. And I've since found this workout that people did in the 60s at colleges and so on. But it would be 3,200-meter repeats. And it's changed over time as our course has changed to 4,000s. We were doing 3,000s last year. But the idea is we're doing a loop. We have a real short break, 90 seconds maybe. And then we do another loop, and we start at their long run pace. And what I found just through, collecting data is if we can get down to their marathon pace, which people say you shouldn't be doing as a high school runner, but then you'll read like Bob Williams, who coached at Oregon, said, "Oh yeah, we want to do all our long runs at, marathon pace." I found it to be incredibly valuable, because now if you're able to get to that marathon pace for, let's say, your third 3,200, which is 6 miles of work, you're now able to really hit all the workouts. You have that confidence, which is a big part of it. I think people overlook, and you certainly have the aerobic strength.
Yeah, we definitely add in a steady state portion into all of our long runs. We don't quite do it the same way as you, but we'll send our kids out. They'll run maybe 45 minutes easy at a conversational pace. Then they'll go 25 minutes steady state running, which is, marathon pace plus 10, right around marathon pace. And then finish up with just some, a mile easy or 2 miles easy, whatever their minutes are for that day. So that same concept of getting down into that kind of marathon pace zone and the importance of that. It's one of the elements I think a lot of programs either forget about or don't put as much emphasis on as maybe you and I do.
Right. And I just find if you tell people just to go out and run, that there's just such a big gray area there that they're going to find some people are running way too hard, or some people are going to be running way too easy. I find more people run way too easy. So I try to, really get them to, have structure to what we do.
And so do you do these structured easy runs once a week? Is it every Monday?
Not necessarily. I mean, I put a calendar together, before each season, and I write it out, and then I type it up, and then I edit it, and then I go back and look at what I did last year. So, we try to have that component be maybe 3 times a month. It depends on your races, depends on your holidays that come up, your school and service days. We do another run where we go over to Unionville Elementary. We have 22 acres that are rolling. It's pristine running conditions, and we do mile repeats, but they're not really hard runs. They're just real easy. Same idea. We actually start at the very, very slow end of our long run pace. We finish, and then the group takes maybe a minute most, and then they try to go down 20 seconds each time. We might do 5 or 6 of them.
And do you incorporate any warm up or cool down with that, or is that's the whole?
Yeah,
thing?
we always do. We have an active warm up, and we have a flexibility routine we'll do before that. So yeah, we always do that, and then we'll do 6x30 barefoot striders usually on Mondays in the summer after our long runs. That's what we're doing right now, and then a cool down. Trying to get some fast running going, and then also to get our minutes.
Let's then switch to the cross training. You have had some really innovative approaches to high school cross training, right? Because not a lot of programs incorporate nearly as much cross training as you have in your program. And the programs that do it, well, the equipment that you've brought on, you just seem to be at the forefront always thinking about that stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it kind of happened by accident. So what happened was, when you're a young coach, and we were running more miles then than we are now, and we had a lot of injuries, and we don't have, 100 athletes that come out. I saw Jim Ryan speak, the first high school American sub 4-minute miler years ago, and he told the whole group the story where 100 people came out for the cross country team. They ran a ton of miles. After 3 weeks, 21 guys were left. That's the team. I mean, if I did that, I'd have 2 people on my team. So we don't get a lot of athletes. If you're a marginal athlete, you're still going to make the soccer team. The soccer team doesn't cut anybody. So, we have a lot of athletes that we have to find a way to make them an athlete, make them coordinated, and to keep them healthy. So we've always talked about cross training. 10 minutes of cross training equals 1 mile of base running. And we've had different approaches over the years. When we had our team that was number 1 in the nation, what happened by accident was they had the exercise bikes in the hallway because they were renovating the gym. And Courtney Smith and Bridget Zerby and a couple other girls, and I didn't know this, were taking my cross training to the nth degree, and they were seeing who would stay later. So they would be at school till 7:30 at night doing, multiple hours of cross training. So at that point, it's not healthy. I then had to come up with all this structure and all these rules. And at the same time, our track and field invitational was getting more and more popular. We've since started a cross country invitational. We have money now to spend, and we've certainly invested that in the cross training side of it. So, some of it is, we just don't have a lot of athletes that can run high miles. We have some that can, and they not only run well, they go on and do well in college, but others, I'd rather just be safe than sorry, especially on our girls team. We may have 6, 7 girls total, and if you get beyond that, they're not going to have a chance to make the state meet.
How can a program replicate your cross training?
One, it comes down to trust. So, what we've done lately is we have been using the Kennett Y, and we have a spin class there once, twice a week. And that's been really valuable. Again, it's not ideal. I mean, I would love to have 25 ellipticos or, us in a pool swimming one day and really change it up. But you kind of have to do, what's feasible with what you have with you. And, what I'm proud about is that we've been able to stay healthy, and I think our athletes are healthy, and we get to the end of the season, we're always ready to run well. And it's not the opposite where I have 2 or 3 girls that are hurt and we have no chance to have the team move on to the States.
Do you look at the cross training as supplemental, or is it really part of coexisting with the running?
I look at it more as it's a necessity for us to stay healthy. I just feel like, I mean, we have some athletes that don't need a Cole Walker, by maybe the end of his junior year he was shifting away from it, which was great. And he could certainly do it because his body was ready to handle more running. But I have other athletes that, they can never go beyond 32, 33 miles a week. I had a girl years back that ended up going Division I, and I told her and the coaches, like, this is the max to her miles. She just wasn't, that coordinated or that athletic. And, she was never healthy throughout 4 years of college. So, it has to depend on the individual runner. But again, we're not getting a lot of, if you get a girl that's playing soccer her whole life and then decides to come out and run, she can probably run more miles. But if you have a girl that really didn't like team sports and kind of was, standing around the soccer field and comes out to run, you got to be really careful with the miles that you add to their body.
When you think about cross training, like, who did you read? What books did you read? How did you come across all your ideas for cross training?
Brian Falk at Elizabethtown was the one that spurred the 10 minutes equals 1 mile. And it was ironic after, I got all this fame, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I've had people contact me from all over the country as if I'm the expert. And I told him this 10 minutes for 1 mile. He goes, I don't know if I'd agree with that anymore, but that's where I got it from. And then I just read everything I could, every article I could find. A lot of it with the internet now. I mean, I think it's just sped up training across America because people can read what other people are doing, and you hope that they're smart about it and just don't say, all right, I'm going to do the workout that this guy's doing. Your body might not be able to do that. And I've always been an advocate of, look, this is the way I do things, and there's 50 ways to do it right. There's no one way to make a great runner. This is my way, and that's why I'm not afraid to ever share what I do. I think what I want different people to do is it's your program and figure out what works for you and your program. If you have more athletes, I would probably do some things a little bit differently than I do.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't think that somebody could take the Downingtown West 2019 cross country program, try to replicate it, and magically become a state champion. I think that it takes a lot more than that. There's a lot more to the equation than that, which is, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast and have these conversations, because I think that there's an element that people don't explore enough that really needs to be looked at and find out. Is it someone like you who has a passion for the sport, who drives his team? If you were to walk away, would Unionville still be able to potentially be a state contender year in and year out like you are? What is the magic piece of it? What do you think is the most important element to a program's success?
I think a coach that is committed. I mean, there's no substitute for your time. And if you try and cut corners, and I tried to do that, I think between kids 1 and 2 or 2 and 3, I just saw some things falter. I mean, you have to be there for certain workouts, and and I have great assistants, but when they're telling me this is what happened, I'm not getting the full picture. It's sort of like you're watching a TV show and you're missing every other, segment between the commercials. So, I think you have to be there and you have to invest time. And I think the athletes see that. They see how much you care, and it's important to you and it's important to them. And I think as long as you have a program where, you're putting a logical plan together, you're going to see success. And in two of my proudest moments are I had 2 athletes that, just didn't respond well to my program. One, I totally changed what she did senior year, and she had her best year. And another young man who was on our first boys team that went to states ended up going to Carnegie Mellon, and we told his coach what to do, and what we found to be successful. And to their credit, they listened, and the young man had a great career. And it wasn't really me; it was just me analyzing what worked and what didn't work.
Definitely. I know this year particular was one of my proudest moments coaching with my program, my like base program. It just didn't work for Lauren Flannery. Like, it was not going to work. And so we really needed to adjust, make changes, using more lip to go, using more cross training elements. And, she was really a huge part of our girls team success. Without her, we don't win districts. We're not there. And I think that the ability to adapt, the ability to say, okay, my way does not have to be the only way that things work out, is really important as a coach.
Yeah, and it's tough at the high school level too, because now, you'll see one athlete doing this and all the other athletes want to do that if they think it's the easier route in their mind. So I think it's really another variable that makes coaching high school tougher, and you deserve credit for that. That's impressive.
Especially with the onset of like Strava, where kids can see what kids from other schools are doing, and they're on there. It's all, it's adding that social media element of, oh, well, this kid's running his long runs at this pace, and I need to do that. It definitely makes things a little bit more challenging if you're trying to develop or establish a program.
Yeah, we've actually really stressed actually running slower and finding softer surfaces. So I know you can go out in the pavement and your mile PR might be this. Let's make your mile PR this, and let's find a soft surface where right now, a lot of our girls were saying, let's say you're a 620 mile PR, right now, starting your training back up, and then we'll move down as we get faster in the summer. But we want them on soft surfaces to stay healthy.
All right. Well, now what I want to do is I want to go in. I'm going to show you 3 pictures. All right. So this is the first picture, and it's not really a picture. I'll give you a little bit of background on this just so that we fill in the gap here. This is from Marc Bloom's new book, Amazing Racers, about Fayetteville-Manlius, and you get a shout out in the book. So I maybe walk us through that and tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, that was, you think about the greatest things that have happened in your coaching life, and that was one of them. On paper, I felt like we could compete with Fayetteville-Manlius, and not only did we compete with them, we went to McQuaid. We took a trip to McQuaid. We took a Friday from school. We went up there. We walked the course. I saw the course. I actually went back to the hotel we were staying at. I revised the race plan, and we went through our splits almost within 5 seconds of what I predicted, and we just blew Fayetteville-Manlius out. And it was one of the great moments of my career, because it was all of your hard work, and it's neat to see when something you think is going to happen actually does happen. And I got to give Bill Harris credit. He has been nothing but complimentary of that team. He's never been, bitter about it. He's just been like, that team was great. And Emily Fisher that year got mono, or I think we had a chance to win the whole thing. But that was at McQuaid, where we went up there and just blew them out. And that was just a great feeling. It was a great team. And that night we actually, coming back, we hit a deer with the school van. We had to stop on the side of the turnpike, and then the turnpike was blocked off, and we didn't get back to like 3 a.m. It was just this remarkable time with this group, and that was the first time we went to NXN as a team, and you've been there. What a terrific experience for a high school athlete. For most of those athletes, that was the pinnacle to their time as a runner, because they didn't go on and run in college.
Yeah, that trip out to NXN is one of the probably the most special things in all of high school athletics. I think for a kid, it's just a whole new level of excitement and accomplishment.
Yeah, they do a great job. I mean, it's really neat that you're on a plane and you're thinking somebody is paying me to go to this venue to be a coach. It's pretty cool.
And you get to meet all the elite athletes. I know we met Matt Centrowitz out there, and he was just such a nice guy. It was really cool. It's one of those unique experiences that for the kids to see them, the pride on their faces for making it out there is really something special.
I agree.
In this article, he talks a little bit about you kept the mileage fairly low. It was 35 miles a week, but with the cross training, you kind of were like, it's probably really around 70 miles a week. Would you say, is that still accurate of what your kids are doing?
Not now, no. And one of the issues I've had, and it's my problem in the last couple of years, is we had this model of just absolutely all in girls, and the girls that I had last year, my seniors were all in. My other kids were great kids, but they weren't ready to do all of the additional work. So we've had to find out what's realistic for each group. But that group was just driven, and it comes from the athletes. My first really good team came from a girl named Martha Brown, who just kind of drove everybody. And without me knowing it, when we were at a different time in our program, we'd be warming up or warming down, and our athletes would stop and walk, and she'd stop the whole team and do push-ups. And it was that athlete driving the program. But this group here was just so driven, and I think they just loved it. And it was, it's just a unique time. So right now, no, we were probably closer to 45 to 50. We were still good. We've been sixth in the state 4 years in a row. And I don't think we're as talented as that group, but that was a special group.
All right, let's go to this next picture here and see if I can do this.
So that is that was really the beginning of the end. That is at the Manhattan Invitational. And Emily did not run well that day. And we found out, I think, later that week that she had mono. So we just squeaked out a victory over Emily is holding the trophy on the left and ended up going to the University of Pennsylvania. So we just eked out a victory, but we knew something was wrong. And she ended up not running at the state meet, I believe. We won the state. And then she did come back to run. I mean, we felt like you only get 7 athletes. So it wasn't ideal. And actually, she ended up getting an injury because she came back too fast. But you're kind of limited with high school. I mean, she certainly deserved to go on the trip. And that was us winning at Manhattan later that year.
Winning at Eastern States is a pretty big deal. It almost is as big as a district title. There's a lot of schools there. It's recognized as one of the best national meets in the country. What's the emotion surrounding winning an event like that? Does winning an event like that propel you?
Yeah, that one, we were so good that year. We actually had a plan where we ran through the state meet. We actually took it almost like Penn relays where we backed off and ran through it. I don't think I enjoyed that one nearly as much because we knew something was wrong with Emily. And, that kind of took a wheel off of our car. At that point, we had already won at McQuaid. We really hadn't done a workout yet. We pushed our entire training plan back 4 weeks. Where what in previous years, we would do some hard stuff before school because once school starts, it's so hot now, we just ended up doing base mileage. But that year we actually didn't do any real workouts until late September, early October, because we were so confident that group was so strong. So when I look at this picture, yeah, it was great that we won. We were actually ranked number 1 in the nation at that point. But I knew that something was wrong, and that was when Emily had mono. So we never had a chance to see that team be at their potential. And I think if you parallel that to now, that's why this spring is so painful. You don't get a chance to see what your athletes could have done. And that's the fun part as a coach, the reward of watching your athletes succeed. So we never got to see that team at their full potential. And that was after things had already gone wrong.
Yeah, that's something that is very difficult for me right now is if the fall season gets canceled, not getting to see our juniors that were really good runners. We had, number 6, 12, and 26 in the state in cross country, and now not getting to see them run their senior year and what they might be capable of would be a really difficult time. So throwing it way back here.
Yeah, that's probably the best race I've ever had an athlete run. Matt actually is going to come on and do a town hall with us. At the time, he was dating Lauren Mills, who's now Lauren Fisher, and they both ran for me, and just 2 terrific people. So Matt, as a junior, I'm a big Daniels guy in the sense that, we want to try and get their turnover down. I find at the high school level, I talk about this all the time with our young men. If you're trying to break 5 minutes in the mile and you go out and run the 800 indoor at like 2:32, well, you can't run 5 minutes in the mile if your 800 is not below 2:30. So as a junior, Matt went out and made states. He made the state final in the 1600 because we're big on turnover. And he ran, I think, in a span of 8 days, he ran 3 1600s under like 4:24. Friday trials, Saturday district final, and then at states, he made the state final. We ended up finding out that he had a stress fracture in his femur, was misdiagnosed. So he actually had a late start to cross country. It was our first time we had a cross country team at the AAA level make states. From that, he got a great physical therapist that really worked on fixing his muscle imbalances and allowed him to be a stronger runner. So at this race here, and it's one of my favorite races to watch, He went through the 1600 at 4:36 and change, and he was in 11th place. And other than announcing if you watched it on the PCN network, other than announcing the people's names at the start of the race, they don't announce them again until he wins the race. So what happens is he goes 4:36 and change, 4:26 and change. He's in 11th place. We're a big, even paced running school, and he keeps closing the gap. So on the final lap, it is two guys, and then about 10 meters behind is Matt Fisher, and they get the name wrong. And then on the last 200, he blows them away and ends up winning the state. And it was kind of surreal. And it was really neat for me. And then the next year, Glenn Burkhardt came and won it again. So we had a different athlete win the next year. So that was really neat. But what a terrific young man. So, and I'll be excited to catch up with him in a few weeks.
Matt Fisher's just one of a very long line of successful 3,200 meter runners that you've coached. And just to name a few, Colin Leak, Springer, you had Fisher, you had Burkhardt, who you mentioned, Kent Hall, Del Vecchio. Who knows what Cole Walker would have done this spring. That's just on the boys' side. On the girls' side, you had Katie Thader, Courtney Smith, Olivia Young, Casey Breeding, Mills, Fisher, Yule, another phenomenal runner. You've coached a lot of these high-level 3,200 meter athletes. How do you think that balances? How do you think that you've been so successful coaching the 3,200 meters?
Well, I think we're an aerobic-based program, so I think we are really strong aerobically. And what I mean by that is, when we're doing pace distance, if you're, Courtney Smith and you're running, 10,000 meters at a 6:20 pace on grass, you're pretty strong aerobically. And you could do that across the board for so many of our runners. The other thing I try to really explain to our seniors, you get off of cross country and you're going to the spring, it's only a 2-mile race. One of the things that Colin has discovered, Colin Leak, who I still talk to a lot, is Mike McGuire at Michigan. His premise for cross country is to take 800-meter girls in high school, and then they're only running 6,000 meters in cross country. So it's not really a race where you have to have the aerobic strength as you do with the men with 10,000. So it's only a 2-mile race. Now, again, you got to be really strong aerobically, if you're a female, to run, 8 laps at 80 seconds per lap. But, I think more of it is just mental strength and, us working on the aerobic part in practice with the workouts we design and with the distance runs that we do.
Is there anything that you would attribute to the success, though? Is there any one element that you're like, this workout is one of the staples, or this amount of mileage, or anything that is kind of tangible?
I think a lot of it, again, I think you talk about culture. Some of it is, I think the athletes know from past years that, and we've connected our athletes with other athletes that are graduated, to get them to believe in the system. Courtney was one that just, really fought the system for a while until she really bought into it. One of the workouts that we do is and people say, oh, it's a speed workout. And I'm like, well, try it. It's a VO2 max 400 workout. When we have our athletes do it for the first time, and instead of doing the standing rest and do the actual VO2 max with the jog recovery, it is like, I hate to use the word death march, but it is brutal. It is, you're doing a 400, let's say 95, and then you have, we start a new one on the girls' side every 245. So you have 1 minute and 10 seconds to jog recover. And it'll be interesting to watch some kids cut the track off, and you can't do that. You got to be on the outside of the track. And literally by the 9th 400, they are getting to the starting line and the group leader's taking off, and they're not even at the line yet because it is such an aerobically based workout. So that's one of them. One of the things I tell my athletes is the last 8 400s is probably the equivalent to what you can run your 3,200 at. So, if you're Courtney Smith and you do 4 at 85 and then the last 8 at 80, you can run a 10:40. Now, she was doing the last 8 at 78, which is why she ran a 10:12.
She was an amazing athlete. Okay, so we're going to move into culture here. And I love how you brought in the connection of past athletes to help and teach the current athletes. And it's one of the big kind of tenets or principles that I see in culture is that, we have a future together. We have a, I'm going to still talk to you after your 4 years. We're still going to connect. And that's a really big part of creating a pocket of safety, a pocket of kind of importance and necessity with kids. How else do you help to create a culture and create a sense of interconnectedness on your team?
Yeah, that's a tough question. It's a qualitative question. So as a science guy, I'm quantitative. We do a lot of leadership things throughout the year. And one of the things we try and do is bring in and I always say, let me back up. I'm sorry, let me back up. Like I always tell people, the advantage I have is I coach the ninth grade team, I coach the JV team, and I coach the varsity team. So with my ninth graders and with my 10th graders, you can see, them developing not only physically, but mentally as they go through their 4 years. And, you know, often with our ninth graders, they have no idea why they're doing a workout. And you just don't have time after school, after a long day, to explain every workout. But there's little points where you pull them aside and you try to get them to understand why they're doing something and how they can help bring their teammate along. We really focus with our juniors and seniors on what it means to be a leader, what it means to try and work with everybody on the team. We create different running groups. It's always fun to watch our running groups have to say goodbye to a runner that is now ready to become faster. And not the stereotype, but more with the girls, they don't want to leave their running group. Oh, this is a great group for me, but and our leaders are so unselfish, and they'll say, look, you're better than this. You got to move on. So we try to create leaders for each group. And it was neat the first time it ever happened. I had a kid come up to me and for some leadership seminar, they wrote group leader or watch leader, and so we try to create leaders throughout the team that creates the culture that we want within practice.
Yeah, I love the idea of the leaders of the different groups. It's actually something I've stolen from you. I know probably talking at the Henderson Invite or the Warrior Classic or any of those invitationals, stealing tidbits of information from you. That was a one that I took and implemented almost immediately and made a profound difference right away. Other thing that I want you to touch on too is the idea of creating a shared sense of purpose. And you do that with your 4x8 and promoting team first. And maybe walk us through that kind of mentality.
Yeah, I mean, I think running, people say, oh, it's such an individual sport. And we really try to talk about, the greatest things in life happen through a team. So, if you're on the cross country team and you're the fifth runner and you don't run that well this day and you're the sixth or seventh runner, it's all about you helping that other person in practice. And maybe the sixth or seventh runner now is in the top five, and we got the states. And that's happened a couple of times in the past where we could have had our seventh runner be our fifth runner and us get the states. And I think that says a lot about the team. So we always try to focus on the team aspect. And there's nothing I enjoy more than having an athlete say, the team's more important to me than my own individual performance. I remember, with Katie Thader, I think it was her junior or senior year, a girl at Garnet Valley ran a phenomenal time. And I knew I was going to have to talk to Katie about this. And I'm still not sure the girl that ran the time didn't run it on a course that was short. But then Katie was all upset. And she's like, I'm going to cost my team a point. And that says a lot about the individual. So in the spring with the 4x8, the beauty of it is you get to bring 4 or 5 people to states instead of just one. So we've really emphasized the 4x8. I think on the girls' side, we've had 4 teams under 9:15 in the state. And it's almost always with distance runners that are running down. And we have some kids, obviously, on our 800 progression program, but we have other athletes that are truly 3,200 meter runners that are just running on leg speed. So that's pretty neat.
That 4x8 program that you're talking about, you had 4 teams under 9:15. You finished top 8 in the state just in the last couple of years, at least 5 times. And what do you attribute to the kids buying into being on a relay instead of following an individual path? I mean, I think every coach has had that situation pop up.
Yeah, it's a fine line, especially, with somebody whose parent is like all about them being an individual. And you also don't want to make the kid feel bad if they want to choose their individual event over, not helping their team get to states in the relay. We have been incredibly fortunate to have athletes that want to help their teammates get to states. We also have a couple of times have had a situation where we get the team to states and then we put somebody else on the relay, and then we let the individual go, chase their own event. So that's happened also. But we've also had years where we've had athletes say, no, I want to run on the relay. And I remember that happened with, Marissa Garrett and Christine Smith, and they went after the 4x8, instead of their individual events. We went back-to-back years. One year we won the district. Both years we medaled at states. And Christine has since passed away, and it has more meaning now for me than it did then. But I'm really proud of the fact that our athletes want to help each other get to states.
Would you say that's a defining characteristic of Unionville program?
Yeah, I would definitely say that, because what it says is, if we take the individual route, we can get 2 people to states. If we take the team route, we can get 5 people to states. And it's a lot more fun when you're bringing everybody along. It's amazing, and I'm sure you've been there, where the athletes think this is just going to happen every year. And then you have a year where things don't go as well, and they're like, well, what happened? And as a coach, you're reflecting on yourself. Maybe I'm not doing a good of this job. And sometimes it's a little bit of both, but it's really neat that the athletes enjoy the experience of the team going up together.
All right, so we're going to move into our wrap up. We have kind of a 3-2-1 element here that we use. We're going to go starting off with Mark Lacianca's 3 favorite running related memories.
Oh my God, that one, wow. So my favorite one is the picture on my Twitter page at Unionville. We went to NXN the second year. So the first year we were number 1 in the nation. We had some things go wrong. We still make it. We're 7th in the nation. The second year, we just never really clicked. We won the league, and I remember Gretchen Mills and Olivia Young afterwards were sitting around saying, what's wrong? I'm like, not much is wrong. We've trained really well. We're going to be okay. Well, we go to states, and we find a way to be second. We had this string of 5 years in a row where we were first or second in the state. And we go to the NXN regional meet, and we were supposed to finish 5th or 6th. And I really felt like we had a great plan. I felt like, hey, we can do this. Well, we blew away the field, and we ended up, winning. And I remember, Pensbury's and, crying going home, and I felt bad for them because me and Greg Sargent are friends. But that was the greatest win we've ever had, where we weren't supposed to do something. Not only did we win a major meet, we now get to go to Portland the next week, which was just, awesome. You didn't expect to do that. So that would probably be number 1, where you saw everything come together as a team. That was really unique. The first state championship with the girls, just because, the first time you do something, it is so unique. There are so many memories from that year. I knew we arrived. We used to go to the Central Bucks East Invitational, and it had North Penn and all these other schools. And, we would come in last, and we just kept getting better. Well, that year, we went 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I knew we were for real. When we won the state meet, we would have won it without Katie Thader, who was our state champion. So that year, that was the culmination, and I enjoyed the journey more than I ever enjoyed the destination. But what a special year that was. So, that moment was great. And then on the boys' side, our first state team, because they just were great leaders. And when I was at Matt Fisher's wedding a couple of years ago, and you got to see these young men, and Tom Nichols, who was not built like a runner, was just such a leader. And I remember those young men working so hard together to achieve that. And for them, it was an incredible achievement because, they had never really been that good. And all of a sudden, not only do we do well, we end up, I think, 6th in the state. So I would say those 3, because it's always about the team, are my favorites.
I like how being the underdog was kind of an underlying theme there, and everyone, everyone loves a good underdog story. I love, this year when our girls won districts, we were the underdog. I think I've mentioned that in like every podcast, but
Well, you should. It was a great year.
Yeah, those are the memories that kind of stick out to you.
And, on the other side of that, then at states, we actually ended up beating you in Henderson, and I didn't expect that. And I didn't think we ran that well. I thought we ran okay, but all of a sudden we're 6th in the state. I'm like, what happened?
I think some of that might be the experience. Your kids had been there year after year. They knew the pressure, the expectations, and I love our girls, and they worked really hard, and they were phenomenal at the district meet. It's hard not to wonder, though, if maybe some of those nerves the first time our girls team had been up there in 4 years as a team, if that got to them.
Yeah, and that's a tough course too. That's a defeating course. I mean, you got to be ready to roll mentally on that course.
All right, so the next part of our rapid fire is your 2 biggest regrets in running or coaching.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not a big regret guy. I think the first time we had a streak of 5 years in a row, we went to states, and it ended. And I remember the girls thinking this is just going to happen forever, and they were so disappointed it didn't happen. And as a coach, I got caught up in thinking it was just going to happen, that I didn't have to do the work to mentally prepare them to realize how hard it is to do this year in and year out. And I think the last 9 years, what has been, so rewarding for me with the different groups is understanding what has to happen each year, and changing our program to meet the needs of each team. So with that first run, it was really painful when it ended. And I remember just sitting on the bleachers, and one of the girls who was our captain said, "Are you okay?" And I was okay, but it was really disappointing. So as a coach, that would certainly rank up there as probably one of the biggest things I regret. So the injuries that we've had, that we didn't get a chance to see Anna Yule her senior year. Katie Thader had some sickness. We still don't know what it is. I mean, when that happens and you don't get to see somebody's senior year, you just feel like you've been robbed of something. And I feel like, with this entire spring season, it's just so brutal because, our boys 4x8 was going to blow the school record away. Cole Walker, I felt like had a real chance to win the 3,200. I thought Ethan McIntyre would do some special things. On the girls' side, we had a freshman who's a soccer player who just has all the talent in the world in the 800. So we had a lot of great things going on this year that we don't get a chance to see. So when I look at regrets, it's not having that opportunity. And you question, did you do something wrong? I don't think I did, because we're not a high mileage program. But when these injuries happen,
missing out on opportunities is a big one. I think that a lot of my own regret happens with either playing the cards wrong so that an opportunity just never presents itself, or when an opportunity presents itself, not taking advantage of it enough. All right. And the last thing is one piece of advice that you have for a coach that's just starting out or trying to develop their program or establish their program as a state or district contender.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I would tell somebody is to ask questions. I mean, I think you would ask me about who was my influence in Phil Genther. I must have called the guy all the time and asked him. I'd find him in a meet and I'd just pick his brain. So you got to be yourself, but you have to be willing to change. And the way you do that is by asking questions. And the thing I love about this sport is so many coaches are willing to share, whatever they do, and we're all friendly. And, it's really neat when everybody PRs in a race. I never worry about, other than like at states, what medal somebody gets at some meaningless invitational. I'd rather see you PR and be 7th than win the race and not be close to your PR. So I think when everybody's helping each other improve, that's great. So for the young coach, I'd say just ask questions, because we're here to help you.
All right, so Mark Lacianca, I want to thank you again for joining us. If coaches want to reach out, they can reach you on Twitter to talk about cross-training, talk about the Supermeet, talk about running. So,
yeah, you can find my email online also, so that would be better.
All right, I want to thank you again for joining us.
All right, thank you, Scott.
Thank you for listening to A Run on Culture. If you're interested in being a guest, please email scott.burns.run@gmail.com.